All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Let's start with the news that's really, I guess,
Dominating?
yeah, dominating the headlines right now. Trump is back in the political arena.
Big news.
Big news. And the markets are, well, they're reacting, as expected in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So we've got company leaders trying to figure out what this means
Right.
for their industries.
Right. Sure.
Investors are placing their bets.
Making moves.
Yeah, so what are you seeing out there? What are some of the key trends?
Well, one thing that's interesting is how different the reactions are. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you've got Qualcomm, for example.
Okay.
Their executives are actually pretty optimistic.
Really?
Yeah, they're predicting chip sales are going to grow under Trump.
Huh.
Now, they're probably banking on his policies, maybe fueling demand in some key sectors.
That makes sense.
But on the other hand, you have other corporate leaders who are worried about those Trump-era tariffs coming back.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They're concerned about inflation, and you know what that means.
Yeah, it hits our wallets.
Exactly. Prices on everything could start going up.
That's a good point. It's not just about the stock market, it's how it affects us regular folks, too.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the stock market, Palantir's stock is going crazy.
It's soaring.
What's driving that?
Well, investors are basically betting on increased government spending under Trump,
Okay.
especially in things like defense, surveillance, that kind of thing.
Right.
And Palantir, with its focus on data analysis and security tools,
Yeah.
seems like they're in a good position to benefit. They're in the right place at the right time, huh?
Yeah, investors seem to think their tech is going to be even more valuable to the government.
Interesting. So we've got tech companies like Qualcomm, Palantir, potentially doing well. But what about the bond market? I know you mentioned some interesting things happening there.
Oh, yeah. In the bond market, we're seeing investors betting on higher yields,
Which mean
which could mean they're expecting interest rates to rise.
I see.
And that goes back to those inflation concerns.
Right.
If inflation gets too high, the Fed might have to raise rates to cool things down.
Okay, so the domino effect.
Exactly.
And what about the dollar?
Well, it rallied initially when Trump came back, but it seems to be leveling off now.
Huh. So it's like everyone's taking a pause,
Yeah,
just waiting to see what happens.
exactly. Trying to figure out what a Trump presidency really means for the global economy.
Makes sense. Everyone's holding their breath. And speaking of holding their breath, a lot of people are anticipating Nvidia's earnings report.
Good.
Big one. They're predicting another record quarter. And it's thanks in no small part to their Blackwell chips.
Those are impressive.
What makes them so special?
Well, NVIDIA's Blackwell chips, they're really changing the game.
Literally.
Literally. Yeah, their capabilities are driving everything from advanced gaming to AI.
Wow.
So think of them like the engine behind some of the coolest tech we're seeing.
Okay.
And that demand, that's what's driving NVIDIA's success.
So, not a surprise investors are excited?
Not at all.
So Nvidia's doing great, but what about Google? There's these rumors about a potential forced sale of their Chrome browser.
Yeah, I saw that.
$20 billion valuation for a web browser. That's pretty crazy, right?
It is. It really shows you how valuable data and user engagement have become these days.
Yeah.
Chrome has this massive user base, so it's like a gold mine of information.
Uh-huh.
And to make things even more interesting, Elon Musk was reportedly on a call between Google's CEO Sundar Pichai and Trump.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, so you have to wonder what his role is in all this.
It's like a tech thriller.
I know, right? Is he just watching, or is he trying to shape the future of these tech giants?
Big questions. Now, before we move on from tech, I want to touch on Comcast.
Okay.
They're spinning off some of their cable networks, including some big names, MSNBC, CNBC, USA.
Interesting.
So what's the thinking behind this move? What could it mean for the media world?
Well, it seems like Comcast's recognizing that the media landscape is changing,
Streaming is taking over.
Exactly. So by spinning off these networks, they might be trying to give them more flexibility.
To adapt.
To adapt, yeah, and compete in this new world of streaming.
Makes sense.
It'll be fascinating to see how they evolve as independent entities.
Yeah, will they change their programming, maybe even merge with someone else? Definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about electric vehicles.
EVs.
EVs, yeah, this is a big one where Trump's policies could have a real impact.
House.
Well, on the one hand, he's talking about rolling back fuel efficiency standards and even getting rid of the EV tax credit. Doesn't sound too good for EV adoption, does it?
No, not really. It's like a step back from cleaner transportation.
Yeah, like a mixed message.
It is, but here's what's interesting. Despite these potential roadblocks, Companies like Tesla, they're still moving full steam ahead.
Well, they're not slowing down.
Nope, they're actually busy securing those HBM4 chips.
From Samsung and SK Hynix.
That's right, and those chips are crucial for self-driving technology.
So even with Trump's policies, it seems like they're betting on the long-term growth of the EV market.
They are. Like market forces and innovation are moving independently of politics.
It's a fascinating dynamic.
It really is. We'll see how it all plays out.
Okay, let's move on to Trump's cabinet picks.
Always interesting.
Always interesting. He's made some choices, and some have people raising eyebrows.
I bet.
Mark Rowan for Treasury Secretary.
Billionaire investor.
Right. Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald for Commerce Secretary.
Hmm.
And maybe the most surprising, Dr. Mehmet Oz for the head of CMS. That one got people talking.
It did. It's a diverse group, each with their own background.
Right.
Rowan, with his financial experience, could mean a focus on market-driven policies.
Okay.
Lutnick's appointment could mean deregulation and business growth.
Interesting. So different areas of focus.
Exactly. And then there's Linda McMahon, the former CEO of WWE, for Education Secretary.
Yeah, that one was a curveball.
It was. It'll be interesting to see her leadership style in education.
Definitely unexpected. And while we're on the topic of unexpected, the shale oil industry is pretty happy about Trump's return.
They're probably hoping for that energy dominance agenda to come back.
Sounds like it. But of course, climate activists aren't too thrilled.
Right. It's that classic tension between economic interests and the environment.
Yeah, you can't please everyone.
You can't. There are always trade-offs.
All right, let's zoom out to the global stage where things are pretty tense right now.
Definitely.
Putin has said he's open to ceasefire talks with Trump.
Okay.
But there's a catch. Ukraine has to give up on joining NATO.
That's a big ask.
It is. It's Putin trying to weaken NATO's influence.
A power play.
Exactly. But it also raises the stakes.
Could escalate things with the West.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, the war in Ukraine is still raging on. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv has been closed temporarily, worried about more air attacks.
Makes sense.
And Ukraine just launched their first long-range strike inside Russia.
Things are heating up.
Yeah, it's a really volatile situation. And in the midst of all this, Biden has recognized Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia as the president-elect of Venezuela.
Interesting.
What do you make of that?
Well, it seems strategic, Biden trying to exert influence in the region.
Okay.
Maybe counter China's growing presence in South America.
Makes sense?
Recognizing Urrutia, who's considered more moderate, could open doors for diplomacy and economic cooperation.
So play for stability.
In a way, yeah, but it's a complex situation.
It is. And speaking of complex, there's some internal strife brewing in Germany's Social Democrats.
Oh, what's happening there?
They're debating whether their leader, Chancellor Scholz, is the right person to lead them through these tough times.
Interesting. So political uncertainty isn't just a U.S. thing.
Nope, it's global.
And what happens with the Social Democrats could affect all of Europe.
Absolutely, even their stance on the war in Ukraine.
Big implications.
Yeah, it seems like the whole world is in a state of flux.
It does.
So much happening, and it's all connected. It's fascinating and concerning at the same time.
Definitely.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
With all these power shifts, Trump's return, the tension between Russia and the West, what does this mean for the future of international relations?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. We've just scratched the surface today.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is giving you some things to think about.
It's a world in transition.
It is. And the decisions made now will have lasting consequences.
That's for sure.
Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Looking forward to